100,000 Kenya shillings. Which car can you buy on a salary of 100,000 Kenya shillings? And here I'm assuming that maybe you're working in the corporate industry and at the same time, you've had a plan to buy a car. So you've taken the right steps in saving maybe a substantial amount of money so that you can purchase the car. Let's assume maybe you've saved around 700,000, maybe in a span of 1 year or 2 years. And now you decide that you're going to take this 700,000 to a car dealer. And then now the balance or what is left, you will pay it in a period of 1.5 years. So let's assume maybe you've not even gone for a big car. You've gone for a small car, a Kadudu. Maybe a Mazda Demio, the latest model, that is 2017. Or maybe even just a Vitz, the same year, 2017. And now when you go to the car dealer, you've already given them the 700,000 that you had saved. And now maybe the balance, I'm going to assume it's maybe you have a deficit of another 700,000. I'm just using a rough estimate, but I'm sure it ranges around that area. So you have a balance, another balance of 700,000. And now you agree with the car dealer that you're going to pay the balance or to clear the balance in 1.5 years. That is 18 months. And you agree that for every single month, you're going to be paying 40,000. So let's do the math. You have a salary of 100,000. And now from this 100,000, you've already agreed with the car dealer that every month you're going to pay 40,000. So once you pay 40,000, when you subtract, you have a balance of 60,000. That is number one. You're living in Nairobi, and we all know that, is it we eat to live or we live to eat? Either way, you can't go without food. So let's take a very minimal budget of, you have to take breakfast, you have to take lunch, and you have to take supper. And let me take a minimum amount of 500 per day. So if you spend 500 per day, it means in a month, when you do 500 times 30, that is around 15,000. So come subtract your 15,000 from here, because we all know that food is a basic need. So when you subtract your 15,000, you have 0.0054. You have 45,000. And now, because you've bought a car, it simply means that now you need to factor in the safety of your car. You can no longer live in a plot. You have to upgrade and go to an apartment. Let's assume you don't even have a family, so you're going to go for a very standard or even basic apartment, a 1-bedroom. Let me give a rough estimate of a rent of 20,000. So if you have to pay a rent of 20,000, let's subtract. And now your balance is 25,000. Right. At 25,000, don't forget there are other miscellaneous. There are water bills, electricity bills, you need airtime, you need, even now that you've bought the car, it needs car wash once in a while. So let's look at it. There is credit, that is the airtime. There are bills, that is water, let's say water bills, electricity bills, garbage bills. Don't forget this one, garbage bills. And maybe car wash, maybe once in a while. So the total of all these bills, let me assume you'll even spend around maybe 7,000, give or take. So subtract 7,000 from your 25,000. You're left with a balance of 18,000. Now, let me assume that because you're in the corporate industry, grooming is paramount. You need a haircut if you're a man. For a lady, you need your hair well done, you need your nails, you need to look nice and everything. So let's assume maybe in a month, give or take, spend 5,000 because you need to look good. So now, 5,000, you're left with 13,000. And now let's agree one thing. There's what we call the black tax. There's always help we send back home, maybe to help our parents, maybe to support our siblings. And let's assume maybe in a month, just spare them 5,000 for black tax. So subtract your 5,000. And now you're left with 8,000. And let's assume we've not yet paid pay as you earn as you pay, shisha, shoe, house levy. Okay, you know them all. So let's assume it's gonna cost you around 5,000. So subtract 5,000 from your balance. And when you subtract, you're left with 3,000. And now with 3,000, remember, you own a car. And your car does not move on prayers and proclamation. You don't wake up in the morning and then you're placing hands over your car telling, oh, I proclaim you have to move from point A to point B. It runs on fuel. And now let's assume it's a kadudu. So I want to believe it's not a guzzler. So let's give it around 500 pop fuel. That is barely 3 liters. So you have your 500 that you're spending each day on fuel. So let's assume for a month, 30 days, because when you have a car, even on Sundays, you always get a plan of traveling from point A to point B. So when you do 500 times 30, that will give you 15,000. Now, from the balance you have, let's subtract 15,000. And now, my good friend, you're running on debts because you're not running on the negative side, negative 12,000. So we are now at negative 12,000. What does this mean? This simply means that you will not service this car. And by service, I mean the oil change. Okay? You will not take this car to a garage because when you take it to a garage, what will you pay the garage with? And yet you're running on a negative. So what this results to is something we call borrowing from friends, family, and the likes. So when you borrow, you're simply digging yourself more into debt. The more you sink yourself more into debt, the more you affect more of your mental health. And what that leads to is something we call depression. So let's say perchance you will manage to clear out the debt of 700,000 in the 18 months period you said. So 18 months, this car has not had oil change. This car has been breaking down. So by the time you're done paying this 700,000, the debt you already own from buying the car, then I can guarantee you one thing. Your car that you bought is also done with you. Just like Ombati says, done with you. So the end result will be you selling this car at a throwaway price of maybe 500,000. You'll start looking for the car brokers you've heard about. And because you're desperate and because you're experiencing a very tough time, I'm so done with this car. I just want to throw it away and be done with cars. You want to dispose the car and start paying the debts. So, can you really own a car on a salary of 100,000? The truth is, yes, you can. That is if you accept your social status. You don't always have to keep rushing with your peers, competition, or your friend is driving an STI, a WRX, and you really want to match up with them. My friend, the easier you accept your situation and accept that you're still struggling to make it in this life, the easier it will be for you. All right? Accept who you are. And when you accept who you are, you will also accept your social status. There's one thing I always believe in this Nairobi, especially for people who are from the village like me. It's always good to have friends who are on the higher level, they are high up in the social hierarchy. But then at the same time, you really need to be cautious about it because there's no need of getting yourself depressed simply because you need to impress people. So let's say still with a salary of 100,000. How about you decide you're going to go for a used but well-maintained, and our risk will approximately range at around 700,000. Or maybe you can go for a belter. A belter goes at around 600,000. If maybe you don't fancy a belter, you can always go for a Vitz. A well-used Vitz will go at around maybe 450,000. Or maybe if you love simplicity at its best, you can go for a Toyota NZD, Matayabut. An NZD will go at approximately 450,000 for a very clean car. And now you can see with now these range of prices, don't forget you had already saved. So your savings will buy you this car, any of these cars, and you will save yourself from getting into debt. Well, I know I'm always biased towards Toyota, but then there are also other models, other makes of cars that you can afford under a budget of 700,000. Maybe you can go for a Volkswagen Polo or maybe a Golf. You can also opt for maybe a Nissan Note. You can also opt for that under still the budget of 700,000. But then I'm against these cars. And that is simply because you're a small income person. Because honestly, let's be honest, 100,000 in the village is a lot of money. I mean, people will even be afraid of you. But in Nairobi, 100,000 is not a lot of money. Me and you both know that. So the reason as to why I'm against these two cars is because they make garage owners smile and car owners cry. They're garage friendly, in simple terms. So when you buy these cars, you'll be a frequent visitor in the garage. And don't forget, you don't go to a garage for free. It comes with something you call you need to pay money to get your car fixed. Money that you are trying to save. All right? So avoid these ones. I'm giving you a list of cars that I know once you buy them, they will really serve you well and at the same time give you ample time and at the same time mind your pocket. All right? So the Auris, the Belta, the Vitz, they will serve you well. Buying these cars, it does not mean that it's limiting you from owning the STI, the WRX, or the car of your dreams. What these cars mean, it's they're giving you a holding ground. It's more like a stepping stone, buying you more time to accumulate the amount of money you need to go for your dream car. Okay? So just use it as a stepping stone and eventually you'll get to where you want to get to. Now, there's always this very strong argument as to how our parents, back in the days, with just mere salaries of 40,000, would afford cars. What you need to understand about our parents in the village is that in the village, the expenses are very, very much minimized. Take, for instance, food. When you talk about food, it's substituted. What do I mean by substituted? If it's ugali, your mom has a farm. That means all she needs to do is harvest maize, take it to the portion mill, and ugali is on the table. When it comes to vegetables, she has a kitchen garden. So she does not need to buy vegetables. She has, maybe it comes to milk, she has cows, right? So the food budget is very low in the village. Okay? Something else, look at grooming. Grooming in the village maybe for if it's our dads in a haircut. A haircut back in the days would just go for a mere 50 bob. And now when it comes to the issue of our moms, my mom had a very specific hairstyle called curly kit. And back in the days, if I'm not wrong, curly kit would only go maybe for a maximum of 300. I'm not really sure, but I'm really guessing it's around over there. So try imagining getting a haircut in Nairobi and even going for the fancy hairstyle that you need here in Nairobi. It simply can't match up to this. And also don't forget in the village, maybe our parents have other sources of income. Maybe your mom is selling milk. Maybe your dad owns coffee plantation, tea plantation. So basically, they have other sources of income. But then right now, we are talking about someone who earns 100,000 in Nairobi with no other source of income. As in, the 100 is the live or die. Right? So now, even go back to the 40,000. With 40,000, there's no car wash bill. Right? And if the SHIT hits the fan, your parents will resort to working. But now, in your case, you cannot resort to working to the office. You don't want your friends talking and starting to wag their tongues saying that you're now broke and you cannot afford to fuel the car. You have a social class or a social status that you need to maintain. So my friend, accept your social status and you will have an easy time.